everyone, thank you for coming back to my channel. So first of all, I'd like to make it clear that the articles that I've been using or news or etc., the information that I've been using, it doesn't mean that I support the authors, the writers, or the journalists. It's just because some of the information that they put on their website is true. As you know that Satan is a deceiver and they always tell only half truth. That's why I don't want to promote any websites, writers, or authors of any kind of information. I will just talk about the things, the information that is relatively true and suitable in this situation. For example, I've used Jordan Maxwell information, but I don't think he is one of us. He is a opposition. He only tells, I don't know how much percent, like let's say half truth. So that's why I want you guys to know that I am not in support of anybody, like for example, John Maxwell. And the articles I've been using regarding the galaxy, of course, they say, the Earth is round, it's a ball, it's a globe, and it rotates, and then they create a theory, precession. That's why we're closer to the galaxy center. But I don't mean that I support that. I just want to state that that's their theory. But instead of that, keep in mind that if I don't mention it, it means that I assume you know. So the Earth is a dome. The land is flat, and then the sky is round, and then we have multiple layers of the sky, and the so-called galaxy is the layer of stars, and they have motion. So right now I believe the stars that coming close to the center of our system, which is our dome sky system, called Pleiades. So I just wanted to make it clear that if I don't mention it again, so I assume that you understand that the Earth is a dome. Now let me reiterate how the Earth works. Firmament, then the first layer is the Moon, second is Mercury, the third is Venus, fourth is Sun, and etc. Then is the star layer, constellations, then that is 7 layers, so then there will be 3 layers of heavens. It's just a model that approximately how the dome of the skies work. Then below, of course, I'm not good at drawing, so I cannot draw a flat earth, so I just use this. So the bottom is 18 levels of hell. That is what I believe is. Now look at the 8th level is the star system. So I believe like the rocks, the gamma ray bursts, the gamma ray energy will come from this layer and straight down to Earth. So that is, for now, the visualized explanation. The first thing I want to mention that is today, the cabinet just authorized Israel-UAE peace treaty. And I believe, when they first signed on September 15, it marks the beginning of the peace treaty. So right now, the government needs to approve every single deal with every single country. So it's just like a process. It's just like a ceremony to let us see. It's like a smoke screen, to distract our attention, because I believe right now we just wait for the first trumpet to sound. Right here, Virgo, the constellation. According to Greek mythology, the earth experienced eternal spring until the god of the underworld abducted the spring maiden. When the sun goes to Libra, the darkness will cover the earth. The modern-day festival of Halloween originates from an old Druid rite that coincides with the midnight culmination of the Pleiades cluster. It was believed that the veil dividing the living from the dead is at its thinnest when the Pleiades culminates, reaches its highest point in the sky at midnight. Pleiades star cluster, aka Seven Sisters. The Pleiades star cluster, also known as the Seven Sisters or M45, is visible from virtually every part of the globe. It can be seen from as far north as the North Pole and further south than the southernmost tip of South America. It looks like a tiny misty dipper of stars. In ancient times, the Pleiades had a strange, sinister reputation. Such medieval rituals as the Satanist Black Sabbath and All Hallows Eve, which evolved into our own Halloween, were said to occur when the Pleiades reached their highest point at midnight. In other words, Halloween's date actually revolved around the Pleiades. Some have speculated that these odd rituals originated as a commemoration of some ancient catastrophe that resulted in great loss of life. Some believe they may be linked to Atlantis myth in Egypt. They were revered as one of the forms of the goddess Isis. In ancient Persia, the date on which they reached their highest midnight ascendancy was marked with ceremony. In Mayan and Aztec culture, this same yearly occasion had a forbidding undertone and was given tremendous importance, with Mexico Teotihuacan city streets and pyramid aligned with the setting of the Pleiades. In Japan, the ancient name is Subaru. Until very recently, the 6 companies that merged to produce automobiles in 1953 placed a crude star map of the Pleiades on each of their cars. But why Seven Sisters? The constellations, remembrance of Noah's flood. There is a view that God mapped out the constellations as a kind of primitive revelation before man had the Bible. An even older view of the constellations is that there were a device of Nimrod at Babel to lead mankind away from God, or at least they reflect the corrupted methodologies that mankind fell into at Babel and afterward. In between these extreme views is a middle view that constellations are corrupted memories of significant events happening early in history. The most dramatic such event was the global flood of the Noah, and as Glasgow University astrophysicist and historian of science Michael Overton observed, one of the most expensive constellations is the large constellation of Arago, the ship, often shown in early representations as though atop a mountain. Coming from the ship is the centaur, a man animal sacrificing a beast upon the altar. We see too the water snake with a raven eating its flesh. There can be no doubt that here we have, in imagination, pictured in the sky, a version of the story of Noah and the flood. The picture is complete with the Milky Way seeming to rise as smoke from the altar. Consider the following quotation, with which we are all familiar. And Noah built an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast, and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings at the altar. And God said, This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you for all perpetual generations. I do set my bow in a cloud, and it shall be a token of a covenant between me and the earth. The bow of Sagittarius is fixed, pointing to one of the most obvious rifts or clouds in the Milky Way. Of course, this association of the southern constellations with the flood story that occurs in Genesis and in the Babylonian book of Gilgamesh is no new insight. For when the stars left vacant by changing the course of Uranus, were later given a name, Columba, the dog, was chosen. Did the constellations inspire the myth, or did the myth inspire the constellations? I'm sure that the latter was the case. Indeed, what better aid to memory of the pattern of the stars by uneducated sailors could there be than to associate the star patterns with the stories known to the sailors from their childhood? It appears that Ovendan's assessment has support from other quarters, for Arago is not the only stellar reminder of the flood. From the Lake Eyre region, Australia, there is a myth that links the Pleiades, known as the Seven Sisters, with a flood. In this myth, the ancestor figure who tried to capture one of them was prevented by a great flood. By association with the flood, the Pleiades became associated with the giving of rain, even though the Aborigines were not farmers and therefore had no practical reason to monitor rainfall. Primitive peoples have commonly timed the various operations of the agricultural year by observation of the Pleiades' heliacal rising and setting. Great attention has been paid to the Pleiades by savages in the southern hemisphere who do not till the ground. Now, amongst the rudest of savages known to us are the Australian Aborigines, none of whom in their native state ever practiced agriculture. Yet, they sang and danced to gain the favor of the Pleiades, the constellation worshipped as the giver of rain. There is also a Jewish legend that links to the Pleiades with the flood. The upper waters rushed through the space left when God removed two stars out of the constellation Pleiades. How the Pleiades become connected with the flood is not known. Nevertheless, the Pleiades are another component of legends worldwide that testify to the reality of Noah's flood. In the ancient Egyptian mysteries, we hear how Osiris was slain by Seth and how Isis made the priests keep the whereabouts of his grave a secret. She instituted a great cult in honor of Osiris. This cult kept sacred the memory of Osiris, whereby the spiritual perception that once existed in humanity lived on. According to Rudolf Steiner, the time which Seth was said to have slain Osiris was indicated as the time of November, when the sun sets in Scorpio and the full moon appears in the Pleiades. It was during the Egyptian cultural epic that Christ, in his gradual descent toward the earth, began to work down from the sun into the sphere of the moon. In this Egyptian myth, this is indicated by the full moon in the Pleiades. The death of Osiris that took place at this time was symbolically a departure of Osiris from the sun, or rather, it denoted a new phase of activity of Osiris who, while still inwardly united with the sun, was now working into the sphere of the moon, and through the moon's phases was raining down upon the earth. Isis is often depicted wearing a crown of cow horns with the solar disk between them. Legend tells us that she lost her crown because she set free and that it was Hermes who replaced her golden crown with the cow horns. Rudolf Steiner speaks of lifting the veil of Isis Sophia by transforming the cow horns through the power of the living word. As the Pleiades are located at 5 degrees in the neck of the bow, and the horns rise from the center of this constellation, marked by the star Aldebaran at 15 degrees 10 rows. It is easy to imagine that on the human level it is the eustachian tubes rising from the larynx which are represented here, contemplating this human physiology in the region of the throat. Correspondingly, on a heavenly level, an image of cosmic listening arises, whereby the horns of the bow serve as antennae to bring in from the Pleiades and other special stellar locations the cosmic forces that resurrect the living word. It is through receiving the living word that humanity transforms the nature of the will. The living word sounding from the Pleiades, as mentioned by Rudolf Steiner, marks the origin of our solar system, the beginning of life brought forth through the word. With the annular solar eclipse of May 20th, 2012 in the Pleiades, just 16 days before the astronomically rare event of the Venus transit across the face of the Sun on June 5th and 6th, 2012. We are all called to contemplate Isis Sophia and the work of lifting the veil of the divine feminine at this time when the disk of the sun, united with transiting Venus, appears in 10 rows between the horns of the bull. As described by Rudolf Steiner, the veil of Isis Sophia is lifted by transforming the lower will forces through the power of the living word, an image corresponding to the sun in 10 rows between the bull's horns at Christ's ascension, when the power of the word united heaven and earth. The annular phase will be visible from the Chinese coast, the south of Japan, and the western part of the US. Tokyo will be on the central path. Its maximum will occur in the North Pacific, south of the Aleutian Islands, for 5 minutes and 46 seconds, and finish in the west of the USA. It will be the first central eclipse of the 21st century in the continental USA. In Sacramento, California, about 87% of the sun will be obscured by the moon. In San Francisco, about 84%, and in Los Angeles, about 78%. Clearly, you can see the number 84, so say August 4th, Obama's birthday. 87 in Sacramento, Los Angeles is reverse, 78. It's clearly that the Satanists developed the country Japan by using the alignment with the Pleiades. And I believe, if I offend anybody, I'm sorry, but that's what I found. I believe Japan, this country, was created by Hitler or somewhere during that time. The leaders in Germany, as their like a shadow followers, or like a hidden army. In fact, there is the Osiris Saturn legend in Egypt. The great and beloved god Osiris is drowned by the devil god Seth, who then cuts his body to pieces and scatters its fragments. These fragments were the Pleiades worshipped on the day of Saturn's death. Saturn is connected with the Pleiades. For one thing, their names are often confused, as in the King James and other versions of the Bible, where Kima is translated as Pleiades instead of as Saturn. In the ancient world, the Pleiades are connected with the flood of Noah. According to Jewish folktale, the third deluge happened when the male waters from the sky met the female waters which issued forth from the ground. The holes in the sky by which the upper waters escaped were made by God when He removed the stars out of the constellation of the Pleiades. Some scholars, calculating back from biblical references, hypothesize that the universal deluge of Noah was caused by a near-passing astral body at 2800 BC. Sanskrit literature of ancient and medieval India is rich in information about environmental sciences. In several texts, a natural event is mentioned, referring to a nova, or brightening of a star in the cluster of Pleiades. There is also a story about a strange fire associated with this cluster. For example, there are several different versions of the same celestial event in Mahabharata describing the inversion of the phenomena as a wall broken between gods and demons. Fiery celestial body fallen on earth, earthquakes, rise of sea level, draft of rivers, lakes and wells, destruction from heaven, severe famine are some of the implications related to the Pleiades. A demon has born in the Pleiades. These disasters should have taken place in the northwestern part of India. The vision of doom is the matrix of the Aztecs' legend of the five suns. The universe was not permanent or everlasting, but coming to an end, like all living things. They pictured time as a cycle of births, destruction, and rebirths. According to the Aztecs' methodology and ritual, this cycle couldn't continue forever. There would only be 5 ages or suns, each of them having its own name, sign, and ruling divinity. The Aztecs' legend of the 5 suns has survived in pictographs painted or crafted on stone, in texts of ancient Mexico, and scattered oral traditions kept by the distant descendants of the Aztecs. Primary source for Aztec methodology is the Codex Chimalpopoca. The first sun is known as 4 water, the second as 4 jaguar, the third as 4 rain, the fourth as 4 wind, and the final, 5th as 4 movement. This world, our world, will be destroyed by earthquakes. 5 was for Aztecs a sacred number, based on the 5 directions. These directions were the 4 cardinal points plus the center. The center was understood to be the star cluster of the Pleiades.